welcome you all to the Middleton City Hall. And I'm going to call the meeting of Middleton Plan Commission for Tuesday, February 26th, 2019 to order. All right, the first item is the roll call.
Commissioner Paulson?
Here.
Hubbard?
Here.
Farrar?
Yeah.
Verdehurt?
Here.
Ramsey?
Here.
Murray?
Here.
And Reed? Here. 7 present.
Okay, so it's not 7:05 yet, so we're going to go to the first item on the agenda, that's the minutes.
Move to
So,
approve. Second.
okay, so all those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes for 2/12/19, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is approved.
There's a Badger game at 8, so we're in
Yeah, so you want to spend 2-3 minutes to talk about before the hearing, or what can we take
Oh, we
here
gotta,
now?
yeah.
So let's see.
Number 4, the Oak Ridge.
Number 4, let's go to
Oh,
number 4.
Great.
Why don't we
Not,
put them in sequence?
Number
yeah, we can go to number 2, yeah, that's all right.
Oak Ridge, yeah.
That's what I
Okay,
said.
okay, Mark,
I heard
let's
number
go.
4.
Yeah, well,
Which department's are you?
yeah,
Oh,
So,
on mine it is because I added, sorry, go ahead.
okay. So this is a sign that's very similar to an existing sign that's out there for Meadow Ridge. And the applicant is here in case you have any questions, but we are recommending approval as a minor SIP modification.
what?
Very, very nicely done, very tasteful.
Yeah, looks good, so they opened the Oak
Move
Ridge.
approval as a minor SIP modification.
Second.
Any questions or discussions? She spent time to, well, you can identify yourself and go ahead and say whatever you want to say.
I really don't have much to say because I want to get home to the Badger game as well. But my name is Mary Beth Growney Celine from Ryan Signs. We're representing the project. And we just would appreciate your support.
Okay. Okay, any discussions, questions? It looks good. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Now we move on to item number 3. That is specific implementation plan modification for signage, WTS Paradigm 1850 Deming Way. They're changing the name to just Paradigm.
Yeah, and I, quite frankly, almost did not put this in your packet and just approved administratively, but it is a different size sign, and so I felt like I should bring it back here. So it's not very visible from the street. In fact, it's hard to see at all from the street. But as you can see, there's an existing image on the right, proposed on the left, same location, and I'd like to tweak our ordinance, take this opportunity to tell you that in the future I'd like to propose an ordinance amendment to allow some more discretion at the staff level to approve such things administratively, assuming you agree with that.
Oh,
So
yes.
we are recommending approval as a minor SIP modification.
It looks like it's 2.5 feet wider and half
Yeah,
feet,
it's,
well, longer and a half inch wider, half a foot wider.
It's a space.
So, well,
Really
what,
just employee entrance. It's not customers.
I think it's their main, yeah, it's their main entrance, yeah.
I'll move approval.
okay, need a second, so you're a second. Okay, any questions or discussion?
Is it illuminated?
Is it, I don't think so, well, is there somebody here from Paradigm?
It's a simulated night view at the top, yes it is. So if you scroll up just a little bit, there it is. Yep. Usually these signs are, I just wanted to make sure. LED.
Any more questions?
Well, it has the side view, it doesn't show any depth to it, so I don't know what it is.
Well, on the right it says, can't see
I
it.
think 3 inches, so
Yeah.
it's internally lit.
Yeah, so there's a side view on the, it's shown, if you go up just a little bit, please. It says the side view 3¼ inches.
Oh, okay, 3¼
So is it internally illuminated?
Routed aluminum face with clear acrylic push-throughs, protruding, half-inch protruding from the face.
Must be.
Yeah, I would,
It's LED illuminated.
it's internally, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
Would have been good if they were here, but I guess, so are you okay with this?
I'm okay with it.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the SIP modification for signage for WTS Paradigm, changing to Paradigm, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. And now we are just about 7:05. So these are the public hearing. I'm going to call the public hearing for the ordinance to require sign postings for public hearing on rezoning, conditional use, and variance application to provide zoning protest procedure. Anybody who wants to speak, either in favor or against it? Anybody who wants to speak either in favor or against it? All right, I'm going to close this part of the hearing and move on. Is it 7:10?
Nope.
It's, okay, we're going to come back to it.
Action on this if you wanted to, down on number.
Okay, number 4, all right. Okay, let's go to number 4, and that's Abby.
So the council has already approved this for first reading, and assuming that you approve it tonight, it would go back to the city council on March 5th for second reading of the ordinance. License and Ordinance has also approved this. I brought an example of the sign that we will be using. It is very similar to the sign that they use at the city of Madison. It's highly visible from the right-of-way. I think our sign, we just had to reformat it by a couple of inches because we wanted to have it fit a plastic envelope here so that we can reuse the sign. Madison's are the same material, but they don't make them so that they can be reused. So we've tried to come up with a solution where we can have a clear plastic envelope and slide a piece of cardstock in so that we can actually have people drop these back off to us and we can reuse them. So we're planning on ordering about 10 to start off with and see what the demand is and see how it goes.
This reuse is pretty good, sign looks good. We are improving upon our neighbors. I think that's a good thing, so.
I would move approval or recommendation to that.
Second.
Okay. All right, now time for questions and discussion. What do you think, David? You like this sign? Everybody's happy with Abby's sign here? Okay, then.
Every other city I've worked in, there's large yellow or orange signs posted whenever there's a variance or rezoning or something, so.
And this is much nicer color, isn't it? So
And-
green and yellows.
As long as we're updating our ordinance, there's a part in the PDD that says 1-year approvals.
Oh,
We have to change that now, because state law changed too, so
Okay.
that's,
oh, the state law changed yesterday, recently?
no, as of January 1st,
Oh,
Yeah.
any
okay.
plan development approval, lasts 5 years by state law now, instead of 1 year. I should have caught that earlier when I
Okay.
was looking at the
Well,
ordinance, but,
I've been talking with we've been talking with our attorneys about the changes that we need to clean up,
yeah,
so we'll
there's just a lot
sure
of
that they're doing that one.
cleanup in the ordinance.
So we don't have to see John McGinky every year then?
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion for recommendation and ordinance to require sign postings for public hearings and rezoning, conditional use, and variance application, and to provide zoning protest procedures, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Now, this protest procedure is different than the other one. Here in this case is just, if the plan commission approved it, they can protest to the council, right? That's what we are doing here.
Requires a second public hearing at the council.
Okay.
Although it
all right.
actually doesn't specify what type of public hearing, whether it's a class 1 or class 2 notice. So,
So you will specify that
I'm-
somewhere then?
I mean, I don't know if we want to amend it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming since it's a public hearing about a rezoning, it
That's
should
what-
follow
that's what I
under a
was
class 2
assuming.
notice, so.
Okay. Well, it is almost 7:10. I know it says 7:09, so do you want to move on to some other items, or should we, wait few seconds?
Want to do the community campus committee appointment?
Okay. Just to finish the public hearing, I think we can wait a few more seconds. So which one do you guys, well, it is 7:10.
It's 7:10.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, at 7:10, I'm going to hear the public hearing input on comprehensive plan, vision statements, background information on existing land use and trends, and draft land use goals, strategy, and action items. Anybody who wants to speak, and we do want people to speak. I mean, that's the, for the next maybe 10 plan commission meetings, this will be the public hearing where people can provide their input. Anybody who wants to speak about the land use in Middleton, going good or getting better or whatever you want to say? Wow, no takers. Okay, well, all right, so we're going to close this part of the hearing and then we are going to move on to item number 5. That's Abby.
Which?
Scroll down.
That's the concept review of the proposed modification and addition former Globe University building, 1345 Deming Way.
So Jeff Kramer, the developer, is here, and Don Powell from Chartwell is here as well. We're very excited about this project. This is a reuse of the former Globe University building, which has been vacant for over 2 years now. And this would allow repurposing the 31,000 square foot existing building and also adding a 17,500 square foot addition to the building that would primarily be the warehouse function of the space. Moving forward, this project would require coming before the Plan Commission for the SIP modifications for design review. It would need Public Works Committee approval because there's a request for an additional driveway beyond what's typically allowed. It also needs to go to the Water Resources Commission for stormwater management approval. We had a good early start to this because the applicant came in and met with several city staff members and departments so that we can try to accommodate their timeline. This is a project that we've been working on now for a couple of months. This is an existing Middleton company that we want to try to keep in Middleton. We do know that one of the sites that they were looking at is in another community, so we're hoping that they'll decide to stay here and continue to be a good part of the business community in Middleton. Let's see here if I can pull up the documents now and you guys, oh, sorry, that's the GIP document.
Well, the Chartwell has been here since '94. We like them to stay here. We want to keep them happy.
So they've done quite a bit of work already. You can see in their submittal they included floor plans and how those will change. There's quite a bit of demolition involved with the project because much of the current floor plan does not work for the applicant. And you can see that this is the existing portion of the building. They haven't done the architecture on the new portion. They've just kind of shown the size of the addition. And then, oops, I'm gonna try to zoom out here. So again, you can see the existing building on Deming Way and the proposed addition. And then they also submitted an aerial photo, which
Not linked in the.
is not. And sure,
It is in the same document, I think.
no, they submitted it after we put our packet out on Friday, but
Yeah, I
my
remember
understanding
seeing
is that it was
yeah.
uploaded, but I'm not seeing it in the packet right now. I should be able to pull it up, though. I just need to log on to a different.
Yeah,
Seems like a
actually-
pretty good aerial.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yes,
it would be in this,
yeah, this is, she had it there, so.
this would be in basically, you can't see where I'm pointing, but in this parking lot here. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Is the addition?
the addition, right, the addition's right there.
Yep.
And then they're adding additional parking in the grass space.
Yep.
And just to reiterate, the use is consistent with the GIP, right?
Yes. Yeah, it meets all the requirements in terms of setbacks of the GIP. There are 4 building standards that are listed specifically, and I went over those with the applicant, and they have given the direction to the architect that they'll need to meet all 4 of the building standards from the GIP while they're working on the architecture.
Can you go back to the site plan?
Sure.
Can you zoom in? There's a loading dock in the back, right?
Yes.
That's something that Globe did not have, right?
That's correct.
They're putting a new one.
And
So
this
the
is
loading dock,
actually-
They'd come in, they'd enter off, actually, they'd probably enter off of, what's the road on the north side? Holiday?
Yep, yep.
You're entering off of Deming Way and exiting off of Holiday, is that correct?
Oh, so they're gonna pull in and widen. Makes sense.
Yeah, and so this is actually tied to their request for an additional driveway entrance because they want to make it easy for truck traffic to come in off of Deming Way and be able to skirt the south and east side of the building.
Right.
They also want to keep this as their primary guest entrance so that the guests and the office visitors aren't using the same entrance as the heavy truck traffic.
While we're looking at that part of the site, could you address the stormwater management pond there? It looks like, is part of that existing, but it's going to be increased?
Jeff, do you want to address that?
I'm Jeff Kramer with Kramer Development. I was planning on having Don give a quick overview on Chartwell before we get into some of the details, if that'd be okay. Don Powell is the president of Chartwell, Wisconsin. As the mayor mentioned, they've been here since 1994. A lot of the companies that we have here kind of fly under the radar, so I think it's worthwhile to hear from Don as to what they do and who they are.
Let's go down. That's great. Let's hear from the president here now.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone. So I just have a few notes here, but yes, I'm Don Powell, the president of Chartwell, Wisconsin. Chartwell, Wisconsin is a licensed pharmacy, and we also provide other home care management services. As a licensed pharmacy, we provide compounded medications for patients at home. We are not a traditional pharmacy like you'd see in a retail section, but all of our pharmacy products are compounded in the facility. We have 2 clean rooms, one specifically designed for most of our compounding, and we also have compounding capabilities for cancer patients receiving chemotherapy, and we provide these compounded medications, deliver them directly to the patient's home, and we also provide teaching and education and training for the patients at home. Our service territory, all based out of Middleton, includes the state of Wisconsin, northern Illinois, northeast Iowa, and certain portions of Minnesota, all serviced out of Wisconsin, or out of Middleton. We have a need for additional space. We are absolutely out of space at our 2241 Pinehurst Drive space, and our clean rooms are 25 years old. Thank you for recognizing when we first came in, Mayor. Yes, so we moved into the Middleton community and commenced business in 1994. We're out of space. Clean rooms need updating, and we are excited for our next chapter of growth at Chartwell. At the end of 2019, so at the end of this year, we will also have additional home care services of a home health agency that will provide skilled nursing services, respiratory therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, and occupational therapy, as well as certain home health aid. We'll also provide home medical equipment and certain items specific to patients, oncology patients in need of mastectomy and other products. Our program vision for the future is to, for this facility to act as our Chartwell headquarters. We will, contained within this building will be our offices for staff, warehouse for support of the pharmacy and home medical equipment. We'll have an expansive set of clean rooms that will be specifically designed and built for our pharmacy production. And we'll also have a patient retail center in with our showroom that will have space designed for patients to come in and in a retail environment for home medical equipment, supplies, and products. And we are also planning on establishing a 6-bay infusion center. So patients who may have difficulty receiving their care at home do not necessarily need to go into the ER or into a hospital or other kind of controlled environment. They can come into our infusion center and receive infusions. Our nurses will place central lines or provide other access device and provide the infusion right there at our facility. So this is an advanced, in addition to those other elements, we are looking at telehealth and televisits. So there's a specific need to bring in new technology into this facility as well. We're excited to work with Jeff Kramer and his team, and we're excited to be here tonight to talk about our prospects of receiving TIF in this effort.
Any questions for Don?
So how many employees do you have now?
At this very moment, we have 85, and shortly we'll have 185.
And what's the total employment capacity on the new site? Up to 185 or even more?
We have parking spots of about 190, but we have a lot of employees that come and go because our home health nurses are not necessarily in the office at all times. They're coming and going, so we think that 180 spots will be enough. Quite frankly, I didn't even add up all of the cubicles and spaces in the facility, but we do have plans for future growth within the facility so that we can add additional space. Demographics are in our favor, and we are providing care in the lowest cost place of service. So as a home care provider, we're very optimistic on the prospects of our future growth.
Any other questions for Don? So
the loading zone is primarily for like UPS to come and pick up, or I don't know how you ship. It's mainly for shipping out?
Well, we'll have both inbound and outbound deliveries and traffic. So the truck dock will receive about one tractor trailer full, not full, but deliveries, which is why we need that entrance off of Deming. And you're right, they come in, back out, and exit Holiday. So one trailer a day. And the other outbound traffic will be our delivery vehicles. So we'll have 11 or 12 delivery vehicles going throughout our service territory, providing oxygen, home medical equipment, and infusion supplies to patients throughout our service territory.
That doesn't seem to be an overburden on the road in that area. It's consistent with other businesses in the area. So.
And by the way, in spare time, Don is helping MedRep, and he helped develop this program Inspire, which puts the high school students having internship at various businesses, and that looks really good. Great job with that one. So.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Jeff, you're up now. So now I will ask you a question that Don thinks that you need 185 spaces in this document. You have 175. So you will be creating more than?
There's 177 stalls, I think, in our current site plan.
What do you do if he needs more?
I don't think they will when we've discussed the amount of employees coming daily.
Mm-hmm.
As Don mentioned, they have folks that aren't in the office every day. So we've worked through that with them. We started at 185 or 90 stalls.
Okay.
And it's come back a little bit since then.
So that will work out. So No, I know maybe we can discuss that later, but you're going to have the solar panels, they're generating about 75 to 100 kilowatts. So how much of that energy that those panels will meet? What's your need, and would this will be good enough for all needs, or 50% or 25%, or how much?
We haven't got to that point yet, Mr. Mayor. We have studied the area of the roof that we can actually use. And so we've identified those spaces to provide a 75 to 110 DC system. So the next step will be working through all the economics of that. We know what that overall cost might be, but haven't looked at some of the details just yet.
Okay.
If I could just recap a couple things. So 1345 Deming, the building is 31,000 square feet. The site's 3.75 acres, which allows us to expand the building fairly sizably. The addition footprint would be 17,500 square feet. There's about 3,000 square feet of second floor office space in that. So at the end of the day, they'll have nearly 52,000 square feet of space here, which I think is a great utilization of this property. There was a question about stormwater. The stormwater facility that you see on the civil plan here is constructed. It has been constructed with the original construction in 2009. It was, this plan allowed for the expansion of the parking lot on the southwest corner, so kind of along Deming Way. That was never done, but in the calculations for the stormwater management, they had included that potential expansion. So our civil engineers are analyzing this. We really aren't adding any impervious surface. We're adding roof surface, which is cleaner water than parking lot water. So we're going to do a new stormwater plan as required by Public Works, but the existing facilities are there. We might have to clean them up a little bit and make sure they're functioning properly. They were at the last inspection a year and a half ago. So that's what we're doing with stormwater. Architecturally, as Abby mentioned, we provided a masking model. The roof lines have changed since then last week. There's going to be the area along Deming Way that is lower right now. That's going to be at the full height of the existing building, so maintaining a pretty strong presence along Deming. The area behind that, that's the pharmacy and lab, and that's going to come down to the rest of the roof level of the warehouse, which is about 18 feet. So that's going to change a bit, and we'll bring that back with full architecture at the next meeting.
It's all two-story.
Excuse me?
2 stories, right?
A portion of it's 2 stories.
A portion of it, okay.
2 stories along the Deming Way, so you have consistent.
Okay.
It won't be the full.
It won't be the full way because you have a loading.
Yeah. Yep. So that's kind of the overall intent.
Okay.
The existing building was built as a school. There's really nothing we can save. We'll save the core areas, elevators and stairwells. Everything else is coming out. Unfortunately, that's just the case with this building. So part of that is one of the reasons for the TIF. We've got a lot of demolition costs, and as I mentioned in the letter, it's not just moving some non-load bearing walls for a new office tenant. It's scraping everything, and we'll be cutting that floor up to put new water and sewer in, add bathrooms. Pretty much everything in the building will be touched. So that's one of the uniquenesses about this proposal. I'm happy to answer any further questions or any details about
Any
project.
questions for Jeff? David?
Main entrance to the building?
Yeah, main entrance will stay where it is right now, in the existing building. There'll be another entrance just south of that or to the right on your page. That'll be an entrance for the infusion center and the showroom. So there'll be the 2 main entrances there. And then on the back side, there's more of an employee entrance. And we'll be adding a few entrances for the warehouse space as well.
Now, Jeff, you have 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. The phase
Correct.
1 is, the building which is already there. So when you go to phase 2, it won't in any way interfere with the cleanliness of the phase 1?
Yeah, so that's a good point. Part of our proposal, which really helps Chartwell, is we've got an existing facility. So we can renovate the existing facility in a fairly timely fashion as opposed to starting with new construction. But the key is pharmacy regulations are changing December of this year. So our plan is to be able to renovate the 31,000 square feet, add on the pharmacy and clean room component, which is like 3,700 square feet. And that'll all be done by December of this year. And then in the meantime, we're gonna be wrapping that warehouse and some of those ancillary services around that clean room. The roof, the structure, all of that will be up by December. So we'll be doing more internal finishing of that construction and addition to minimize any issues with the pharmacy and clean rooms.
So this is just to provide him input right now. So any other input you like to provide? Or you have any questions to ask? So that's fine too, so.
This is concept review on the, so the only thing would be required is an SIP modification for the building footprint change, right?
That's correct.
And is the use, the use is office and manufacturing, but an infusion center, does that use become a medical use that's allowed under the GIP and the retail? And those are not the primary uses, so I don't know how we treat primary and accessory uses under the GIP. I mean, the research and development, product development, retail and commercial uses generally under B2.
Professional offices.
Okay, then yeah. I just don't know about the infusion center.
We-
Is that in the B2?
Yes, we do
Okay.
allow medical clinics in B2.
Perfect.
Sounds like you've got a bit of each of those.
Yeah,
Right.
Showroom is there,
yeah, so, okay.
Yeah, it got R&D as well there, so theoretical and
it's-
applied research, so this is actually
good way to
applied
use a
here,
site.
so,
Yes.
yeah.
It's
Okay, any other, so we need a motion for the concept approval then? Or what is- Okay,
Concept approval on the SIP.
On the SIP,
SIP, okay. And, well, any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the approving concept approval of the SIP, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Now we on to the number 6, which is about the TIP. Concept review, request for tax incremental finance district 3, TED 3, assistance Kramer development for Chartwell 1345 Deming Bay. Abby.
Yes, so this is a request for $830,000 in developer finance TIF assistance. It would cover the following items. The economic incentives would be $446,000 to maintain at least 160 FTE jobs on site. We would do a look back provision just like we've done with every other TIF agreement where we're incentivizing jobs on site, which is just to ensure that they're meeting their jobs requirement annually. We have entered into some agreements where the jobs number has fallen below the amount that was incentivized, and in that case, there is a clawback provision related to that. For this project, we kept exactly in line with what the city did with the GAMEX Sun Nuclear TIF incentive on a per job basis, and we felt that it was a pretty similar project. This is a much larger scale because this is a much larger expansion than what they ended up doing at GAMEX. Demolition is a very straightforward TIF eligible item. This is for $250,000 for demolition. And then the final item is solar PV. The amount is $134,000, and that's the cost estimate that they have currently from a solar provider. They're working on getting additional details, like Jeff mentioned to the mayor, about what percentage of their energy that will cover. But this is in line with what the city has done for solar PV, where the incentive is for the 70% of the project that's not covered by the federal tax credit. This would result in an 85-15 split, with 85% of the increment applied to support the project and the remaining 15% to support TIF 3 projects. And our recommendation is for concept approval.
Okay, questions now. Yes, Kurt.
No, I was just gonna say that having recently reviewed Madison Jobs TIF policy and getting into that discussion, this is a really good use of TIF. Because it's not that much, and it helps keep a valued employer, adds 100 jobs, adds sustainability features, so I think it's a great use of TIF. I guess the only question would be, if we're using TIF for solar, it gets paid back through the increment in the same way that, I don't know if there's a way that part of it could be financed with PACE or not.
That's a very good point. I was
TIF
gonna,
payback's probably a little quicker.
yep.
Yeah.
Well, there is the possibility for using PACE and TIF.
Okay.
And I was actually going to give Jeff and Don a flyer that I have in my office on PACE financing. The Goodwill project was planning to use PACE financing in conjunction with the TIF, and then we actually brought Dale Hatfield from Farmers Savings Bank. We got him up to speed on the PACE program, and he became a PACE eligible lender. But then they ended up not proceeding with PACE financing for that project. So we haven't had any PACE projects move forward in Middleton, but I think there's a lot of opportunities. In fact, I'm trying to bug Van to get PACE financing flyers on all the tables at the next chamber meeting.
So you're on pace to do that.
Yeah.
Not gonna use
Yep.
Maybe you
so-
want to describe PACE, what is it?
It's PACE stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy,
Oh,
and
okay.
Dane County recently passed enabling legislation. I think there are 34 counties in the state now that have enabled PACE financing, and basically it's a mechanism whereby it allows for a reduced interest rate for lenders to provide financing for energy efficiency projects and renewable energy projects, because Dane County has enabled for any unpaid loans to go onto the property tax bill. Property taxpayers never ever pay any, if a loan goes defunct or unpaid, the property taxpayers will never foot the bill for any of these loans.
Okay.
But it provides the lender with an extra security measure, which then gives them more comfort in financing energy efficiency and other projects. So it's really cool to see what has been done in Madison. There have been some really big PACE finance projects, like rehabilitation of building on East Wash for a hotel. And I think it's another great tool that we can use to help the city toward the 100% renewable goal by encouraging, when we're meeting with businesses, encouraging them to look into PACE financing.
We will talk to Jeff about it.
It's like a special charge against the property. It's
Okay.
not an assessment, it's a charge, but.
Okay.
But TIF, since we have and it'll generate increment, kind of does some of the same thing.
Well, yes, Wayne.
These items that are listed for TIF are unusual in some ways for a new building. There's nothing for site planning, for site conditions, and there's nothing for stormwater. Are we sure that we're not going to have you come back and say, oh my goodness, look at what the soil conditions are? We need some more money.
That would not be our plan. We have done soil testing and environmental testing, and there's no issues with either. We frankly don't have time to come back and try to work something else out. So,
Wayne?
I have a question on the economic incentives. Abby, maybe you can answer this. So my understanding is the amount per job is based on total jobs as opposed to the increment in jobs. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's based on total full-time equivalent jobs that they're willing to commit to keeping on site.
And is that traditional, the approach, I guess I was trying to figure out whether it was more appropriate to base that on the additional jobs provided or the total number of jobs.
So we have provided TIF incentives for companies to increase the number of jobs when they're, growing companies. I think that the city did that with Highsight because they were planning on having 50 additional FTEs. Typically, when the city has done that, the amount of increment has been higher on a per jobs basis. But there have been at least a few instances that I can think of where the city has provided the economic incentive to keep existing jobs in Middleton. So it's the same thing we did with GAMEX, Sun Nuclear. I think we did that with Natus Neurology, WTS Paradigm as well. And it's spelled out in our TIF project plan as an eligible cost.
And how does the total amount per job, 2686, compare with previous projects?
It's the exact same amount that we did per job on Gamex on nuclear, and that was, I think, probably 3 or 4 years ago now. So at 2786, we took that exact same amount that we had approved for Gamex, and we are trying to keep it consistent.
Great, thank you.
Any more questions?
Again, it's a developer finance TIF, so.
Well, if there are no more,
The jobs are not retained and the increment is not generated.
so we did have a motion to approve this, it's
No.
concept
Move to recommend
approval.
concept approval.
Concept approval, okay, so,
So moved.
okay, need a second?
Second.
Any further question or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. All right, so we're going to go to number 8 and then come to number 7. This is the appointment to plan, or the Plan Commission member to the Airport Master Plan Advisory Committee. So I had talked to Leaf and some of you, and he's interested in serving, so I'm interested that the members are appointed in a way that we cover the whole city. So there will be more appointed from the areas which are under the, where the planes fly, but, you know, this area needs to be covered too, so.
Good for Leaf. You need a motion?
Absolutely.
Move to appoint Leaf Hubbard as the Plan Commission representative to the Airport Master Plan Advisory Committee.
Need a second. Any questions? You
More
think
meetings.
Leaf looks
More
good?
meetings.
So any questions or comments?
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So passes unanimously. Leave
Great.
on to the airport. So,
The airport.
okay. All right. We are on to item
Run away
number
with the
7. Plan Commission appointment to the Community Campus Committee. Abby, you want to provide the details, or we already know the
Sure.
details? or-
The RFP for the community campus plan has been released now. And we are working on taking appointments to all of the various committees. So the community campus committee will be made up of 9 members in total. The mayor will get 3 appointments from different aldermanic districts in the city. The Plan Commission has an appointment. PRFC has an appointment. The library director and senior center director will be serving on the committee. Chamber of Commerce gets an appointment, and then there's a Middleton resident appointed by the Common Council. So, actually, the 7th item should have been deleted with the addition of the first item. So, the Middleton resident appointed by the Common Council would come off. In fact, there will be 3 mayoral appointments confirmed by the Common Council for a total of 9 members. So we need a Plan Commission representative to serve on the committee. Yes. Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, I think what I meant to do was say, have the first item still be Common Council appointment, and then I should have taken item 1 and put it down on item number 7. You're correct. Thank you for noticing that, Kathy.
So again, what I'm trying to do here is to cover the whole city. And that was the intent of the city council as well. So I have also asked all the elders to make the recommendations, and we also put on that website, notify me. So it's a very important thing which is happening here. This is something we are talking about, 50 years out into the future. So this is something which we all ought to be proud of. So we got a lot of great people here. So Wayne and Kurt, they're both wonderful, and David is moved to now Madison now. Otherwise, he would be great too, and Jennifer is too. But so, and of course, Elder Dan, he can be on any committee or attend whatever he wants. So let's see that.
That would be great too.
So you both live, huh?
Don't you live downtown?
Yeah, a few blocks south.
You live closer to this site than me or Wayne.
Would you like to serve?
I'd like to serve.
I'll nominate Jennifer Murray. To be the Plan Commission representative on the, what are we calling this? The Community Campus Committee,
I'll second that.
Triple C.
Okay, all right. Now let the discussion begin now.
I think it's a great nomination.
All
He
right.
wants to serve.
Yes,
He'll
yes.
do a great job.
I think she will do an awesome job. Okay, all those in favor of Jennifer serving on the Plan Commission appointment to the Community Campus Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right.
Can we make a motion to prohibit David from moving out of the city?
Yeah, really?
Well, now let's have a second now. Okay,
Not on the agenda, we can't.
yes.
That's right, it violates open
Yeah, we
meeting.
got to get in the agenda sometimes. All right, we are to item number 9, and this is Eileen's thing, comprehensive plan update discussion, vision statement, background information on existing land use and trends, and draft land use goal, strategy, and action item. Let's go, Eileen.
Okay, if you're wondering why it's listed as a public hearing, the first, at 7:10, the city attorney said, instead of just public input, just say it's a public hearing, because that's, more people will understand what that's about. It wasn't published in the paper, but it's a public hearing. And so that's how he wants us to show it on each agenda going forward, through the spring.
So
for
you
each
think
of
we
the
should
items.
publish in the newspaper?
No, he said there's no notice requirement, he's not
No,
suggesting
but
that we
it's
do,
not a
but-
requirement, but for the sake of bringing, so
well,
people can fill up
the-
this hall and provide their input, right?
Well, the public, or the Plan Commission agenda is published, and it's in the hall, and so, and it's sent, I mean, people are notified through the notify me process. So I guess we're not proposing that, we're just
Okay.
suggesting that, again, the public input be called a public hearing at each one. We will have a public hearing when the plan is to be adopted. There will be at least one public hearing
Well-
for that, and that will be noticed. That's a 30-day requirement, and so it will be noticed.
Well, George is here and Milton Times is here, maybe they would write something so that,
Sure. And we
because
have
this is
probably-
going to go on for next 7 to 8 weeks. And we really want people to come and express their opinion that what do they want their city to look like 25, 30 years from now. Again, this is pretty important. This plan is going to stay there for a while.
Sure.
The last
10
one
years.
was 2006, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yes, so this evening, you have the memo in front of you that was part of the public packet. And what we're hoping to gain is feedback on that memo. There's a draft vision statement, and I know in the past, the Plan Commission has had a lot of discussion about it. Just wanted to put something out there as a starting point for you all to change as you want to. And then also a little bit of background information, the existing land use totals. I also did a land use trend, and things might not add up exactly, and there's some discrepancies because of the information that was available going back to 1964. But, I think it's important enough to see that trend that I kept it in there. And then we have the draft land use goal. Again, if you remember from our discussion 2 weeks ago, we're trying to pattern it with a very elegant presentation and succinct plan that Madison has, and then draft strategies and action items. What we're hoping for tonight is the feedback on those items in the memo. And then next time, we could talk about, along with the transportation item, talk about growth projections, land demand and supplies, and then revise the land use categories. Somebody mentioned last time that we'd like to look at that. And then also, one of the reasons we're doing it this way is to come to some agreement on the goals and the strategies and action items before we write the remainder of the chapter, so.
so you have agricultural and vacant 611 acres. Does this include golf course or where is
Are you
6?
looking at the existing land use?
Yeah, city
page.
boundary. That's 611 acres. Where would we find them?
Probably a lot of that is just other open space that hasn't been developed yet, like
Does this
community
include
of
golf course or
Well,
not?
no, it's not the
Oh,
golf course,
okay,
it's like the
okay.
community of Bishop's Bay that,
Okay,
that's an approved plan, but it's not developed, it's not completely developed
Okay.
yet. So a lot of that's vacant. My guess is the majority of those 611 acres are in that.
and then 10,000 and extraterritorial.
Right, and the extraterritorial is just kind of provided as a discussion point for what
Okay.
we do have. And,
Okay.
we do have intergovernmental agreements with every single one of our adjacent neighbors. And that gives us a good roadmap for the development that either can occur within those existing towns or that we can expect as a city over the next 20 to 50 years in a lot of cases.
On that chart, I was confused by, you have a category which is single-family residential, and then two below it, you have 1 and 2 family residential.
Yeah, and I didn't put this chart together. This is from Vanderwall, who did our existing land use map.
Okay,
And I think that's probably more of an R2 zoning.
R2.
Because in the R2, we do say 1 and 2 family. I didn't verify that, but I think that's where that
So
came from.
the
So that's the R2.
single-family
zoning.
residential is probably the R1,
Yep.
and then the 1 and 2 families are 2.
And I was a little surprised by the single-family residential unsewered, but we do have property that's over 5 acres that was annexed probably 10 years ago, that has a single-family house on it that's unsewered.
Where is
And that
that?
probably, it's north of, it's just south of our mock,
Oh, okay.
and just north of the Tribeca property.
okay.
So I think we have a couple other ones like that that are annexed but not developed yet, so.
But they would eventually,
Eventually, yeah, that property for sure will eventually develop. Mhm. We have people calling on all the time about, so, yeah.
So I noticed that there's a private parks and recreation
Mhm.
more in extraterritorial than in Middleton, so 222 acres. quite
That's
big.
probably the Bishop's Bay Golf Course,
Oh, I see.
yeah. Yeah, my guess is that's almost entirely that. So we have the overall draft vision statement. You know, not that I stole this, I took it from other, many different things, trying to condense it down, which is very tough. And so is the land use goal. But please feel free to change whatever you want or propose whatever you want. I just needed to get something out in front of you, so.
Let the changing begin,
let's
Kurt,
change it again.
Lee.
I was just gonna ask a
Everybody
question.
here, so-
We'd looked a little bit, we'd looked at Madison's plan just as kind of a template and a design strategy. And one of the things I really like about their plan is they specifically identify a land use goal of what they call complete neighborhoods. Now, they're a little ambiguous as to what it means. But I like that idea, with this idea of a wide range of housing types, sizes, and densities, to talk about the idea of a complete neighborhood that is, a lot of our newer neighborhoods are complete in the sense that it has a variety of housing
Yes.
types and styles, and a few neighborhoods serving retail. So,
So you,
and I mean, speaking on the Workforce Housing Committee, right, I like this deliberate policy goal to have a wide range of housing types, sizes, and densities. Really to,
did you want the words complete neighborhood and strive for complete neighborhood added to that one?
I think as a strategy, I think that's a good idea. How would I write it? Infill of a wide range of housing types, sizes, and densities throughout the city, including more affordable options to promote complete neighborhoods.
Perfect.
And maybe can we add the word and placemaking, something about,
Okay, yeah.
And to that particular action, or
if
strategy, or
that's
do you want a
okay.
separate one?
Sure, I'm trying to figure out how to write that. Right, because it's the idea that you don't want just these formless neighborhoods
Right,
of just one
right.
type. You want compact, walkable, placemaking, diverse housing types in a complete neighborhood.
Somewhere we'll define that in here then.
Yeah.
Complete neighborhood.
And the idea of a complete neighborhood is usually also perhaps neighborhood serving retail. Not like big box, not big employment, but
Well,
on a corner if someone wants to put a coffee shop or a sandwich shop or something, or,
like Middleton Hills has, like Community Bishop's Bay will have.
right.
So you have this point, strive to maintain balance of permanent public open space at least 25%.
Well, historically, we've had about 25% permanent public open space. And to me, that's a real positive thing about the city. And so one of the things that I thought we should look at as a strategy is to ensure that that balance stays. Now, again, that's up to you all and to the council.
No, that's a good thing. I think we do want to.
Where are we now? We're at,
We're a little less than, we're about 24%, I think.
okay.
And part of
So,
it,
I mean, it would be nice, sorry to interrupt, it would be nice to think about if we, kind of at maximum future development, how many additional acres of parks we need now
right.
to kind of pre-plan where that.
And certainly one of our largest neighborhoods, Community Bishops Bay, already has that to a certain extent. There's already all the land that needs to be dedicated to meet that. So that will help, once that's dedicated, that will help
It hasn't
that
been
balance.
dedicated yet.
It hasn't been dedicated yet. Only a portion of it has been.
There's national standards associated with
Yes, absolutely. Did you want to reference those, do you think, in this, or?
I think we're at or slightly exceeding
You are.
that standard.
Yep, I think you are, yeah.
It's probably in our Parks and Rec plan, isn't it? Those NERPA standards?
Yes, and
And
we'll probably
RPA?
have it in our Green City portion of the comp plan too, but, that's the problem. Land use, I mean, to try to boil it down, land use encompasses so much.
Everything.
Everything. So, you know, well, maybe we'll have that in housing. Well, maybe we should also have it here, but,
One of the things, I just thought of it, and I should have told Eileen while we were doing the draft, but one of the things we did with the Sustainable City Plan was to create a map showing all the open space and then measure the walking distance buffer areas. And I think, I can't remember the exact figure, but we were at somewhere close to 99% of our housing stock was within a 10-minute walk to a park. It was, and I think that that's in the parks
I
plan
think
too.
it is.
So we
in
can
our
kind
service
of,
areas that,
yeah.
yeah, there is.
But you want to put it here too, maybe? Well, that will become part of it in any
Yep.
case, right?
mm-hmm.
I just like that, you know, the build plan, which will become part of it, isn't it? That has been sitting from 2010, so.
Right, and that, again, will be to the,
Yeah.
like, up to you
Okay,
all
okay.
and to the council, so.
Yes.
And there may be revisions to that.
Yes, yes.
I have a few questions and comments. So on the goal, or the vision, I should
The
say.
vision, mhm.
Yeah. Strikes me that a vision is not only what you currently see yourself as, but what you want to become. And so I guess I've been looking for something other than the city of Middleton is. And the best I could come up with is the city of Middleton seeks to continue to evolve as a sustainable, something of that nature of, you know, stating what we see ourselves, but want to continue to grow in some aspect. And so that suggests language is the city of Middleton seeks to continue to evolve as a sustainable community, A couple other questions. Under draft strategies, where the first bullet is facilitate compact growth to reduce the development of farmland, would it be helpful to say to reduce the non-agricultural development of farmland? Just indicating there may be some agricultural development that would be appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the word evolve because you're never stagnant. If you're stagnant, that's too bad.
Exactly, right. Yeah,
That's, see what happens to waters.
yep.
I think I like evolution, so.
Another question, under the bullet that says continue to attract and retain high-activity uses, civic and festive uses. Is there a reason why that might not also include commercial, or,
That's good. Again, this was straight out of our FUDA plan, so.
What is a
First of all,
festive use?
um,
Is that like the
mustard
museum,
mustard-
mustard days and
or-
stuff?
Yeah.
Festival.
I thought, well,
Festival.
it, you know. I'll put it in there.
Yeah, that's actually pretty important.
Yeah.
and then finally, the next bullet, under allow for greater commercial and residential density, I'd suggest a comma there, comma, and mixing those uses, comma, near existing.
Sure.
That's right. Otherwise, I think this is a very good job. I really like how this was done.
Good
But
start, isn't it?
Instead
Yes.
of mixing those uses, how about just mixing uses near existing and future
I'll take out
destinations
those.
and transit
Yeah.
corridors?
Yep, that works.
Recognizing it's always difficult to do this by committee. Could we go back to the vision statement? I find the and celebrates diversity rather an awkward one of the three lists.
Okay,
The City of Middleton is a sustainable community with an exceptional quality of life that is rooted in environmental stewardship, full stop. We are a thriving community, accessible to all, and celebrate diversity and equitable opportunities for all people.
That's good.
Now, we can also have
Yeah.
something that makes it the future as well.
Something about the evolution as well, so.
Stop. I love that.
Good job, David.
Yeah.
As long as we're wordsmithing, I'd like to delete the phrase "and when feasible," because that seems to be that we're exceeding that, oh, transit may be when it's feasible, but I think we want to commit ourselves that if you're a city, you have transit.
Okay,
Right?
so biking and transit,
Walking, biking, and transit.
that's good. And I think I'll take out all the references to food, I just wanted you to know where they came
Yeah.
from, so I'm gonna cross them out for the future.
I guess on the draft action item is rather than evaluate existing city ordinances, I wonder if we want to be more explicit to say, update and revise the zoning ordinance to reflect the comprehensive plan and,
That's good,
because that's, I mean, under state law, that's one of the reasons you do a comprehensive plan,
right,
to have something to which your zoning is consistent.
so update and revise
Update and
zoning
revise
ordinance,
the
or all land
zoning
use
and
ordinances?
land
Subdivision,
division
okay.
ordinances.
And then what was the rest of that part, to reflect the
To reflect
adopted land use
Adopted
strategies?
land use strategies in the comprehensive plan. Something. And I know that we might talk about it as a transportation strategy, but one of the things we've done recently, we've talked a lot about reducing parking requirements,
Good, yeah,
perhaps considering reducing lot sizes to get more I mean, we have that with the PDD, but
yeah, but that's good,
consider to reduce parking requirements to get, as part of this more sustainable compact urban form.
I think that's actually pretty important because, our parking requirements go back to when?
They go back before my time, which is
And-
really old.
I mean,
It's, well, not really, not that old,
Oh,
but,
I know.
I mean,
So consider a reduction in parking standards,
well, I mean, so
to reflect, or to.
how much do we want comprehensive plan and the strategies to be considerate? We're gonna consider this, or we should think about the possibility of getting around to
Or
doing it. Or
evaluate
how
it.
much of it should be being bold and saying,
Yeah,
this is our strategy.
sure,
Reduce, so I would suggest we have a strategy which is reduce and in some cases eliminate minimum parking requirements to provide more flexibility.
eliminate? You really want to eliminate depending on?
There's a lot of cities around the country that are just eliminating mandatory parking.
If there is a demand, somebody will come along and
Right.
provide.
So it's either in downtown areas, or sometimes you do like a transit overlay.
Oh.
So within a transit, half a mile of a transit, or you'd eliminate. Most market rate development's not gonna go with zero parking, right? Cause your customers or your employers or your tenants are gonna want, and your lenders who
All the banks, yeah.
are gonna want the parking.
sure.
But
Yeah, maybe,
let's be capitalists and say, why require free parking? I mean,
Sure.
well,
developer wants to provide
we
it,
should
fine.
look what's happening in Wisconsin and what are the other states, I guess, let's compare it. So I think, when we're going to parking, I think, let's see what the rest of the world is doing, so.
Okay. One of the things I'm just thinking of as I'm writing these things down is, the draft memo that we started with is on our website on base, and we can revise this and put it maybe in a special portion of our website so people can get to it and see how it's evolved and have it there. And then next time, there'll be further revisions, and there'll be the transportation one added, so we'll start building things.
That will be
allow it for
open
the
to,
public.
that will be open to everyone, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you heard it, guys, you can just go there and look at the plan and see what's happening and provide your comments too, so.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Hopefully they will.
I think something that might be nice in this area is, as an action item, would be continuing to plan for you know, the future. I just think of the flooding this summer and
Yeah.
some of the things that occurred with that and, you know, thinking through some of the components of the challenges that that's brought to the city now. If we could have planned ahead, what would we have done, right?
So to continue to plan for resiliency, or?
Yeah.
So, we are preparing that flood plan things, and do you want to incorporate that somehow, somewhere, or?
Well, we might look at, or we might mention that as an action item, that needs
Okay.
to be evaluated. We need to evaluate the events and also the strategies for mitigating.
Yeah, I think it's very important to mitigate it.
I mean, would it,
So-
if we want to be bold, an action item is to urge changes in state law that hamper municipalities' ability to control flooding.
I like this bold statement.
At some level, let's say what we intend to do. I mean, I don't know if advocating for changes in state law is something you should do in a comprehensive plan, but, I mean, I know you talk to a lot of citizens and they're like, well, you need to control stormwater, yes, but the state
Right.
constrains what we can do.
But still, under the constraints, there are still some mitigation, like the Stormwater Resources Committee is looking at that,
Right.
what could we do in the North Fork area that the water stays there. And we are working with Madison that what they could do that rather than the water from Menards and,
Yeah.
West Town Mall coming here, what can they do at least to contain there for some time, or at least infiltration in their own area
Exactly.
there, so. And that's very important in the long run, so.
So would that be a strategy to, how did you phrase it, like continue to, we want to emphasize that we've been a leader in stormwater, but we want to continue to ensure that all development reduces flood risk, improves water quality.
Takes into account the
into
appropriate,
account-
yeah, don't you think something like that?
Responsive to environmental challenges.
Oh, that's good too. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, I was just thinking out loud, I didn't have the words.
Are you kind of speaking to kind of addressing regional partnerships in addressing some of these concerns? Is that?
Oh, absolutely, that's a good
Yeah.
word, because the flooding issues are regional.
Yeah,
That's
definitely,
not
yeah.
Middleton or Madison, it's just, and we got to address that on a regional basis.
The majority of the
Yes.
watersheds for both the North Fork and
Yes.
South Fork are they're out of our.
Out of our jurisdiction.
Yeah, they're out of our
Yeah.
jurisdiction, so.
And a certain large city to our immediate east likes to criticize us for too much development.
Yeah.
Saw perfectly fit to flood us out with all their development on the west side that came into the, don't put that in the paper.
Don't put that in the paper.
Even those to the north, I think we like to communicate with them and see what we can do, so.
But I think as a land, that should be in the intergovernmental chapter.
Sure.
But as a land use strategy, something about resilience and flooding is an important.
Yeah, we don't want another $33 million damage to our businesses and our Feather Branch in the day-to-day gain, so I don't think we want that to happen, so. Now we have to look at everything which we can do to minimize it, so.
We had a lot of redundancy built into those things, with the ultimate development modeled, so it's scary.
They were designed for a 100-year event,
Yeah, but with a 100-year flood.
100-year
yeah.
flood with,
And more, so, with a lot of, like I said, redundancy, so needs to be an evaluation up and down, whole.
maybe we need to
Watershed.
redesign to the 500-year flood.
I think there are strategy where even if you had that amount of rain, there are probably some ways that you could have even more rain and you don't have floods. It's just things we have to think about.
Well,
so.
that's, I think, one of the things that the Water Resources
Yeah,
is
they're
working
working
on
on it.
with their RFP to study what can be done in different areas
Yeah.
for, more storage, more mitigating things right up front.
Yeah, it's a continuing effort, particularly
That's right,
after
yeah.
our last
Yeah.
stormwater, at both the stormwater utility and water resources.
Right.
And we're very much looking towards the future and what do we do to mitigate? And what do we do to, after the damage, to not change it? A lot of what happened, one of our consultants said to us, this is a good news, bad news thing. He said, if there's any good news out of it at all, what has happened is now we have more capacity in the
Yeah.
Pheasant Branch.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things that we're looking at moving forward. So, yeah, it's gonna be an ongoing process. And I think that we do need to mention that in here. I think we can leave out the state part.
See, the nature created it, and let's not, let's take advantage of it, so.
And Madison is they are looking at things, as I understand it, in that South Fork to.
They are.
So that's
Oh,
good.
they are. I actually, there's a monthly meeting of the mayors and village presidents, and we talk about it, so
Yeah,
then we had
Madison
a,
is in the middle of, I think they have 4 or 5 studies going.
yeah,
Oh, good,
yeah.
good, yeah, that's
And-
great.
I have a question or comment about action items. Does this allow us an opportunity now to talk about different types of land use mixes that might be part of the vision? I mean, do we want to say something about a balance of residential and business, or what that vision might be for a mix of land uses? And I know we're not to the that sort of a forecasted land use plan at this point, but I guess I'm just curious. We've talked a lot about how much employment the city of Middleton has and the types of residential areas, so in any other type of land use, I guess I'm curious if we should make some statements about what we might envision that to be.
Are you talking housing specifically?
Housing, jobs, businesses, parks, land use, all the things at the top where you're looking at the different segments and what percentage of the community they make up. I mean, would we want to encourage more of a certain type of existing land use in the future, percentage relative to everything else?
My question is, are we gonna take these action items, these bullet points, and then do they get, like the land use, then we get into housing, broke down into housing then? I guess I'm saying, do we wanna get really, really specific here? Or do we want these to be general, then lead into the other places that they,
chapters or-
the other chapters where they
I
fit?
think it can do that. I think we'll also want to flesh out some of these things so that it would describe it, so maybe it could, and then it will lead to the other chapters, and some of them will be repeated in different ways. I mean, so.
I know Eileen and Abby and Mark, they will distill it and bring back the really good stuff. I was just thinking, you got so many classes here, if it could be sort of summarized into fewer categories and then making a chart or showing him like you have here the years, so how it changed over time, so, well, here you do have fewer
Yeah.
categories, so,
This is from 2017, so that's,
Okay.
I mean, we could combine like residential things, I guess, more so, but
yeah,
I think it's kind of interesting to see how it does.
yeah, of
change.
course, yeah.
I mean, I put like 1 and 2 family in the multifamily category because that's duplex, so multifamily.
See if it could be, I like sort of a visual thing, once you combine it and see how does it look. Would be really nice.
I mean, with that, if you look at industrial, we've had steady growth in industrial. And I wonder if what's important, not just in the economic development, but in land use to say, I mean, in essence, we've set aside a part of the city that's really for employment.
Yes.
And you can mix commercial uses with residential uses along transit corridors. But you really can't mix industrial with residential. And a lot of cities are actually experiencing that the growth pressures means that you're putting residential in and kind of displacing industrial, and that's kind of destroying your jobs base.
Sure.
So maybe something like that is a strategy, just to preserve an employment base, right? Because you've got the Airport Road Business Park, and you've got a lot of these the businesses where he's coming in on Deming Way, these are areas that are really focal employment centers. That are industrial, but also research and distribution and kind of emerging cluster. It looks like we're gonna have an emerging pharmacy cluster over there on Deming Way.
Right.
Medical, I mean, that's research, that's really where it's going.
Yeah, so we got central business, community business, neighborhood business,
And those,
regional business.
and those
so-
could be combined. I actually
Yeah.
combined them to do the land use trends,
Okay.
because that was not broken down going way back. And that's interesting too, because that does encompass
Yeah.
some of our office uses as well.
Anyway, you got the point, so you're going to.
Yep, I got the point.
All right. More input on this one to Aline and Abby and Mark. You guys, you think you got enough to work with for next 2 weeks?
You betcha.
Okay, all right. This is
Thank you
just,
all for the input.
One comment. What's the product? I mean, what you've just said, yes, you could have categories and a click on the computer screen to pull up all the others. If you're going to a web solution,
True.
right?
And it will be, so.
So I think if the plan is to have a web solution, a web comprehensive plan, then you need to think through what you can do because you're on the web.
I think I like that. You know, so you can have simplify and then you can look at the details.
Right.
Yes. Good point, David. We were almost going to close the discussion on this one. It's
Well-
good we kept it still open, so.
Thanks for the feedback. We really appreciate it.
Okay, we are on to the last item. This is the project updates on the Addison, Goodwill, University Avenue design issues, including sidewalk and the Masters third building at Bishop Bay. And this is all of you who wants to begin first.
I'm first.
All right, the way to go. Marks begins.
So we have the Addison project, which was before the council this past month at a couple of meetings. You'll recall last spring in April and May, the Planning Commission last saw a 39-unit building proposed in this configuration shown in red with 2 driveways. Next slide. And this is how it appeared. This was really more detailed than we would normally have at the GIP stage, but it was giving a concept of what the developer envisioned in response to, this was developed in response to the comments he got through the hearing process to address scale and density issues, mass, and preservation of the old building. So now we have gone from that design to this. This was in response to comments made at the council meeting on February 5th. So if we run that one more time so you can see how the, you'll see it right here. So that's the current, that was the original, and then it shifted to this configuration. So what you see here, next slide please, is this is the L-shaped floor plan. The height is capped to 3 stories at the request of the council. The cottage will be removed. There will still be 39 units, but 10 of the 1-bedroom units will be converted to studios. The parking ratio has been dropped because the developer is no longer planning to have below-ground parking. The covered parking will exist solely on the ground level, first floor, resulting in 1.02, basically 1 parking space per bedroom. Covered parking was 59 stalls covered, now 26. The surface parking lot, which is in the back of the building, now the northeast side where this text is, increases from 5 to 18. One advantage I see of this configuration is that the driveway will only be on the east end of the site, which allows a potential for full road access depending on city engineer approval. And as I mentioned earlier, we feel that this brings a better street edge. It will have a similar setback along the front. So that's the plan that was approved on May not May, February 19th by the council, so just last
Any
week.
questions for Mark?
When you're looking at it from University Avenue, do you see the parked cars underneath? Or
No,
are-
well, that's a good question. So, if you can go back 2 slides, you'll see there you go. So this is the ground level concept, which has the parking on the western wing of the building, with 5 apartment or dwelling units on the bottom of the L, the east end there. I've already let the developer know that we are going to expect good design wrapped around that first floor so that it doesn't look like just walls without windows, things like that. We want to make sure there's a good design, which we felt was appropriate at the SIP level, SIP stage. But that's a very good point.
A facade.
Yes.
Both
Yes.
the west wall and the south wall.
Yes, exactly. That's certainly our expectation, and he's aware of that.
Yes,
If I
David.
could, this will come back to the plan commission now?
Yes. So the GIP was
Oh, yeah.
approved at the council last week. It's now, that's now the zoning for the site, PDD-GIP. And the SIP then must be consistent with the GIP. And so that's where the detailed drawings will come back to the plan commission before going back to council.
I will take exception to having a mechanical room and a refuse room and whatever it is on the street. Right? Even if we tart it up with windows or whatever it is, I think that's totally unacceptable.
You'd prefer them on the northern end of that ground floor, is what you're getting at.
No, because then there'd be parking there. I mean, something that is non-parking along the street edge.
Nobody wants to live on, they don't want to live on the street too much.
Yep.
That's what, 60 feet of exposure to the street that is blank.
Right, and that's why we flagged it for them as a concern that we don't want to see a blank facade. So they're well aware of that.
Any other?
I mean, just to get back to my comment earlier about reduced parking, this development does not work without reduced parking. And this is why I think we either want to write it into the ordinance or we have to do everything by PDD. It's right on a bus station and you have studio and 1 bedrooms. Some people, I think we want to say to a developer, if you want to build some units that have no parking and you're right on a bus line, or give them bus passes, that's sustainable. That's great. That's urban infill that we want. It's sustainable. So, because it's PDD, we can be more flexible on the parking. But I think if you want to make better infill work, you have to be flexible on the parking.
I will add that I compared this, the parking ratio with the Stagecoach, Parmenter Circle, and what was the third one now? I think it was Meadow Ridge projects. And because those are near transit quarters and as opposed to west of the Beltline where the transit service isn't as good, and there's some different circumstances there. These are along, all the projects I just cited are basically along busy streets with good transit. And this was maybe 1 or 2 stalls fewer, but it's also in an area where there's commercial services nearby and jobs. And it's a very solid, very frequent bus service by Middleton standards, frequent, every half hour.
It
During the
it does illustrate what the reality of development economics is on an arterial like this is, if you want structured parking, you're gonna need at least 4 stories to cover the debt service. So 3 stories with surface parking can work, but if you want structured parking, I mean, I think from a design perspective, you either have to be flexible on the parking or allow people to go up to 4 stories if you're gonna make them park that many cars.
So main thing is the mechanical room, so that's what you need to think about, so. Any other questions or comments before we move on to the next?
Can you go back to the site plan, please?
So that's the original, there you go.
Oh, I see, okay, all right. I
That-
haven't seen all the surface parking and the
Yeah.
entrances.
Yeah, it's, this will get you there too.
Yeah,
I added the colors just to help highlight it.
Are we okay about losing the cottage, whatever it is?
Well, it was
We have
never a
no choice.
it was never a requirement. Quite frankly, from what I've heard, the developer's not sure that they can make this work either, but this is what they're trying to work.
Yeah, the cottage looked nice, but I guess,
And they just rehabbed it all.
pardon me?
He put in quite a bit of money to fix it up as his offices.
Oh, you did? Oh,
Graded, yeah.
okay, I didn't know that. More input to Mark on this one? Okay, so let's move on to the next one, Goodwill. Is that Abby or?
Yeah, sure. So this is a project that came forward as a building that had been vacant for more than 10 years. And the owner and developer, Don Casper, received TIF assistance, developer finance TIF assistance for sustainability features, including geothermal, solar, adaptive reuse of the existing building, and she's also planning to apply for LEED certification for the building. I think it will be the first LEED, assuming that they're able to get it, it'll be the first LEED certified Goodwill store, so it's pretty cool.
Or maybe isn't it first LEED certified in Middleton, or there's something
I
else?
believe that it'll be the first that has the certification, that's correct. A lot were built to the standards, but I think it will be the first LEED certified building also.
I
in
think this will
Middleton.
make a lot of people happy. Whenever I was walking in that area, they were asking, why nobody's doing something to this
Yep.
cold store, and so, well,
Yeah, and the reason,
Dr.
the reason that it
Casper,
took,
and she made it happen, so.
yeah, the reason that it took
nice.
so long is because Don Casper's father had originally built the building, and she wanted to keep the existing structure, and adaptively reusing an existing building is really hard. So it actually costs more for them to be able to just take a portion of the building and then rehab it than it would to have scrapped it and built new. But she was really committed. And the mayor recognized Dawn at the State of the City address for her work on the project, which is really nice. And the store is open now. It opened 2 weekends ago. It's really sunny and nice and
Really, it's nice.
pleasant. It's great.
Drove by it just yesterday, I guess it was, and it was absolutely crowded.
Yeah, their parking lot has been full.
Go inside, David, I will do it too, so.
Yeah, it's
I
really
drive by it
nice.
every day. One minor concern, sorry,
Go ahead.
is the cross street by the apartments. I saw someone almost hit me today. They came from there straight across, 4 lanes to go into Goodwill. And it's offset a little bit, so they actually had to come.
Oh, it's even hard to turn left from that street,
Yeah.
heading west.
The nice thing is they have access to the signal. If people realize that, they could get out by the signal, right?
Could we do anything, put a sign or something? Not?
We're not gonna add a median.
That would
Okay.
be the only physical way to keep people from doing it, is I think a sign,
I mean, it's,
you know.
it might be a one-off incident, but it might come back as a,
Well, you don't want the accident to happen. I think
No.
that would be a good thing, so. Okay, well, questions for Abby for Goodwill. I mean, this is a good project.
Great
Of a lot
project.
of work, and it's happened, so I'm quite happy with this, so. Okay, University Avenue design issues.
So this year, the city is planning to reconstruct University from essentially Park Street west to the Beltline. And the focus has been on widening the intersection of Parmenter and University so that we have left turn lanes. As you have probably noticed, if you aren't aware, we have a lot of congestion at Parmenter and University, especially during peak hours, but it's really an all-day event as well. So the intent is to try and improve traffic flow through the intersection, especially east to west. Next slide. This has led, though, to some consternation with the pedestrian accommodation in front of the fire station. The current approved sidewalk plan is to end the existing sidewalk that runs between the off-ramp and Parmenter Street. It is to, let me start by pointing out the green line first. The green line, the red line actually is the property boundary, so the right-of-way and then private property, the fire station to the west, and then the first red line you see north-south is the parking area that's owned by the city.
CDA.
So, the CDA. Thank you. And The green line shows what the new right-of-way edge would be, not right-of-way, excuse me, the new curb of the street, which, as you can see, crowds the edge of the right-of-way, which is depicted by the east-west red line. So by that street being widened, there isn't room to keep the sidewalk within the existing right-of-way, is what I'm trying to get to. So the approved sidewalk plan at this point is to have the sidewalk come from the east and end at the CDA's parking area. The fire department, there's an existing sidewalk to the west, which is shown in the picture at the bottom, and that is unfortunately partially on, well, a lot of it is on fire district property. It's not within the right-of-way. And so the fire department is, because there will be a disconnect to the east, the fire department has proposed removing that section. Next slide. These seem to be
removing the existing section that's to the west.
Right.
Of the current apron.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, and the part between the apron to the east. There'll be another slide. I think I must have put these in the wrong order. I thought I had another slide in here, but I think it's coming. So this is an existing condition. I thought I had this first. Sorry about that. So the bottom right is obviously an air photo, and what I put on there are some lines to depict what the adopted bicycle pedestrian plan is. And you'll recall this discussion from last November when the Plan Commission weighed in on the idea of keeping the sidewalk. Next slide. This now is the section that I intended to have earlier. Continue. So this is what I was trying to talk from. So the part that's shown in the blue dashed lines is the bottom section there is the part that's going to be, that couldn't be accommodated as part of this project without an agreement to site the sidewalk onto fire district property. And so because of the lack of an agreement, that part is not going to be built, and that is what leads to the disconnect with the sidewalk to the west. That's what leads to that. So I'm sorry, I had one extra slide in there that I had intended to remove, and that's what caused my confusion. So as you know, the Planning Commission last year recommended continuing the sidewalk all the way to the west. A couple weeks ago, the fire district requested the city engineer to remove that section, given the gap to the east. And last week, the Ped Bike Transit Committee essentially reiterated the Planning Commission's recommendation, which was to keep the sidewalk. So that's where we are right now. Is sort of a difference of opinion between the fire district and the city. At this point, the city engineer, next slide, is planning to keep the sidewalk and crosswalk in the design drawings, but flag them not to be constructed with this project. Those pedestrian connections can be retrofit as a separate project in the future if something changes. However, there's an existing pedestrian curb ramp at the Cayuga intersection, which is currently, as the city engineer, his words, useless and potentially misleading, and therefore he plans to remove and replace that if a future crosswalk is constructed, but remove it at this time. So that's where things stand today with this project. Sorry if that was too much detail, but I thought I'd
Any
catch you up.
questions for Mark?
So that last point is, if someone could be misled to cross a street thinking they could go
Right.
east and they can't.
Right.
There-
So currently the sidewalk leads to, leads to the ramp, there's a handicap ramp that leads into the street,
Yeah.
but not to a crosswalk.
Yep.
And there are people that cross there. I've done it myself, and on occasion other people I do it as well. The sidewalk has been maintained until recently, cleared with snow and such. But because there's not a crosswalk there, the city engineer is preferring to remove that ramp so that it's not guiding people into the street. And I understand that. One solution would be to add the crosswalk as part of the project, but that's not in the scope of the project at this time.
Thank you.
And our recommendation was not just to maintain the sidewalk, but was to reduce the geometric design speed of that taper, something that was rejected by council and public works, and that's why we're here today with this. Clarify that.
Thank you, Kurt. So,
The point of this was an update to, not for action, but to let you know how this evolved, given that you had seen it a few months ago.
okay, let's go to the masters. Who is,
Mine's a really short update.
okay, yes.
I just wanted to let you know, last May, the Plan Commission approved a revised location. The building was moved to the south and the parking was moved to the north. And they have received a grading permit, a land disturbance permit. They are working on it. They are about to get their, if they haven't in the last few days, get their full building permit to build the last of the 3 buildings from the masters. Quick update.
Short and sweet.
Any questions by Eileen?
I think we have a elevation on that.
Kinda looks like a platypus, doesn't it?
Oh,
What- Anyway,
What's the projected completion date on that?
on the
Do you know?
masters building,
Yes.
probably by the spring of 2020. I'm not absolutely positive. I didn't,
It's just
I
wondering.
know they've been very
I see that
diligent
every
about
day.
it. Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they're actively working it.
Yeah. It could be quicker than that. I don't know.
Is the foundation in?
It's partially in.
So maybe they are planning on trying to get it for the,
They frame it out in April, May?
maybe they could
Maybe
finish
they
it.
finish by October? I don't know.
I think that's pushing it.
That's pushing it. You either wanna lease up in like July before people
Yeah.
start school, or it's April, May.
okay, any other updates from anyone? Any other updates, commission folks?
I guess I'd like to say, several of us were at the Klein opening the other day for the retirement housing, and I think that was a very well-done project. We were impressed with the quality of that project.
And I agree with Wayne that I was there too. That's project really done well, so. So, well, if there's nothing else, then need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, you guys actually like it here, so we are adjourned.